club?
International politics.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, conflict. I was really into conflict resolution, and also I focused in ancient history. So I was studying like Italy and Greece and the ancient empires, and I was very fascinated with like ancient church history, and then I was involved in like the Middle Eastern crises and really active and peace stuff, which I found very interesting. Once I left politics, because I was working in senators' offices and just very unhealthy behaviors, very unhealthy, like so diametrically different than the yoga. And then I left that, and Hera was sitting in a circle of people from all over the world talking about peace, like in a very real way. Like how do I change my world and become peaceful, so that then that starts to filter out. So I actually feel much more productive now than I did looking at policy, and that was a whole nother thing, which you guys, I'm sure, know. No. Yeah. So yeah, It's Yoga in San Francisco was this just amazing meeting place, and so many people came to San Francisco from all over the world and said, oh my God, I love this. Can I do this in Stockholm? And Larry would say, sure, go for it. Send me 10%. It was like very loose. Next week, we're going to go into business a little bit more. But people were coming, and they were so attracted. That's what I really wanted to do. When I came to my teacher training, I just wanted to open an It's Yoga in Toledo. I'd been traveling. I was like away from my family. I have a very strong, like they pulled me in. You see where I am, right? And I wanted to have an It's Yoga here. I thought, wouldn't that be amazing if there was an It's Yoga in my hometown, Toledo? And I obviously wasn't the only person who had that thought, because people started to come and open centers, and It's Yoga was growing. The trainings were, we had 7 trainings a year, 200-hour trainings, and then we started weekend modules.
Wow.
Then we started the rocket trainings. We would add like these 5 days on to the 200 hours. So we were constantly in training, and then we were traveling for It's Yoga. So at that point, there was studios in Provo, Utah, and Las Vegas. There was Columbus and Cincinnati. There was Puerto Rico. There was Stockholm. There was Florence. There was Nicaragua. Panama. So it began to kind of like spread out, and Larry was just so delighted about all of that in so many ways, and also realizing that it was kind of getting beyond his control, because if we come to the circle for 1 month, we're lucky if someone stays in touch, and really gets it. For me, I knew that after the 200-hour training, I was so blown away in my brain. Things were so different in reality than what I had thought that they were, that I just knew I needed more training. I just was like, I couldn't get enough of it. I just wanted to sit in the circle, like I said to you. And we started to really kind of begin more programs for the studio directors. And most people would come back here and there. They would come for a weekend. They would come see Larry, or we would go there and kind of keep things in touch. So it's easy, I think, in the yoga world, there's a fine line. And yoga can either very much nurture and bring forth your true self. But on the sort of discrimination, right? On the very other side of that, it can very much nurture your ego. And it's such from my experience, been a balance with It's Yoga as we grew, and as people would go out and open centers. A lot of times there was the essence of It's Yoga was getting changed. Like people would call the rocket different things, or they would add different things to the rocket. And having had such an intimate seat at the table, I heard a lot of it, and I was very impressed upon. I feel very connected to what Larry, the essence of what he wanted and what he was trying to put forth, and how sometimes it would take more than a month to really build a relationship with someone that was, strong. And so what we saw, even when Larry was here, some people that were really tight, like Michelle and Florence, Liliana, like that kept the essence of it really pure, and David for a long time. There was some really key players. But when the center closed, in 2008, we had a major economic crisis. I don't know if you remember that in Mexico, but in the US, especially in the big cities, like all of the students their level of commitment shifted. So it was like, oh, I'm just going to go around and do all the 90 days for $90, rather than forking out $300 every 3 months. It was expensive to keep the show going. And Larry was also starting to think that there might be something outside, just SF and just that center for him. And we had been spending some time. Did you ever come to Nollyland?
No.
So
I have saw pictures, but no, I never went.
Yeah. So after we got married, we were going up there a lot, and we found an apartment or like a little house, and then we rented it, and then we were going back and forth, and then finally It's Yoga closed its doors in 2009. So from 1989 to 2009, 20 years, which I think is pretty amazing. Having been the third yoga studio in San Francisco, to now over 140 in the Bay Area. Larry would say I created all my own competition, because he turned around and was giving everyone permission to teach, handing out certificates, whereas no one was doing that back then. Ashtanga was very much like you had to work really hard to get there. There was a lot, you had to jump through a lot of hoops. But with Larry, you got to come and sit in circle and show up and practice every day, and he really believed, in my understanding, he believed in people's hearts. Like, he thought that everyone was really good at their core. I still think they are. I just think that sometimes we can lose track of that, and it can happen very quickly, and we didn't even know it happened. We got caught up in our previous thinking or whatever it was. So Nollyland was amazing, and Nollyland was kind of this beautiful experience that came from when the rocket was born.